Imagine you're sorting through a jar of old coins, and you pull out a worn quarter that looks like everyday loose change. Then you take a closer look and realize this unassuming little piece of metal dated 1983 and bearing the P mint mark might be worth hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars depending on what's on it. That kind of discovery is why collectors around the world obsess over coins like the Liberty Quarter Dollar 1983 PUSA, not because it's rare in the everyday sense, but because minting errors, mistakes, unusual die varieties, and even mint mark oddities can transform an ordinary piece of currency into a prized collectible with a market value far higher than its original $quarter face value. What follows is a continuous, in-depth narrative exploring the history, circulation, error types, and collector market value of this fascinating quarter, everything from everyday wear to extraordinary mint mistakes that have turned small change into big money. The story of the 1983 P Washington quarter dollar begins in the early 1980s, a time of economic adjustment and shifting priorities for the United States Mint. The Washington quarter, first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, had become one of the most familiar coins in everyday American commerce. Its design, Washington's profile on the obverse and an eagle on the reverse, was instantly recognizable to anyone who grew up using coins for decades. By 1983, the coin was in the middle of its long run, with mintages in the hundreds of millions each year, yet this particular year held several unexpected twists that would make collectors pay attention in later decades. In 1983, the United States Mint produced Washington quarters primarily at the Philadelphia Mint. This mint mark, denoted by the letter P on the coin, indicates domestic production at the Philadelphia facility. In that year, more than 673 million Washington quarters bearing the P mint mark were struck, a considerable number by any measure. Under ordinary circumstances, such a large mintage would suggest that these coins are common and only worth their face value of 25 cents to most people in circulation. Most circulated examples, those that have seen everyday use and show signs of wear, are indeed worth close to their face value, typically trading for around a quarter to perhaps slightly more in low grades among general collectors who want example coins for basic sets. But once you begin examining this coin more carefully, especially in higher condition or with subtle anomalies, a very different picture emerges, one that shows how market value among collectors can diverge dramatically from face value, because certain mint errors, mistakes, and die varieties turn an ordinary 25-cent piece into something that commands attention in the numismatic world. A coin's value isn't just about how much metal it contains or what number is printed on its face, it's about rarity, condition, demand, and the stories collectors tell about how and why that coin came to exist. One reason collectors focus on coins like the 1983 P quarter is that certain mint sets were not produced for this year in the early 1980s. Unlike many other years when the U.S. Mint marketed annual uncirculated sets directly to collectors, in 1983 the standard uncirculated sets were not available, meaning that higher-grade examples were less likely to be held by collectors and more likely to enter circulation where they were spent and worn. That made finding truly pristine coins from this year rarer than you might expect given the high production numbers, and has contributed to higher premiums for well-preserved examples among collectors who seek uncirculated coins in top condition. Normal circulation wear has a predictable effect on a coin's value. A heavily worn 1983 P quarter that shows obvious smoothing of details from decades of handling might be worth only its face value, a familiar 25 cents that spends just like any other loose change. A lightly worn example with clear date and mint mark might be worth slightly more to a collector seeking representative specimens for a date and mint set. Values in such condition often fall in the range of a few dollars or change above face. But when you find coins that show strong details, good eye appeal, and minimal wear, especially examples graded at higher levels like AU about uncirculated or MS mint state, the value rises significantly. MS graded 1983 P quarters can trade from tens of dollars up to over $50 or more depending on specific grade and eye appeal. Beyond condition, the most dramatic driver of collector value for a 1983 P quarter is minting errors, unusual, unintended variations that occur during production when something goes awry with the dies, planchets, or striking process. These errors are fascinating because they can occur even when millions of standard coins were produced, and a few misplaced mistakes that enter circulation rarely can become collector treasures. Some error categories are subtle and primarily of interest to specialists, while others are striking literally and figuratively and command significant premiums at auction or in private sales. One of the most well-known varieties among collectors for the 1983 quarter is the so-called spitting eagle error. This quirky moniker refers to a coin where a die crack or die clash produces a raised line on the reverse side near the eagle's beak, giving the bird an almost comical spitting appearance. While relatively modest compared with dramatic modern errors, this variety has been recognized among collectors for years and attracts interest because it is not present on standard struck coins. The value for a spitting eagle example depends on its condition. Coins in circulated grades might sell for a few dollars above normal, while finely detailed uncirculated examples can fetch several $100s when properly authenticated, depending on the grading and overall eye appeal. Another intriguing and much rarer error type reported among 1983 P quarters is the struck over an amusement token error. In these cases, a genuine U.S. quarter design was struck over a planchet that originally belonged to a non-monetary token, for example, a token used in arcade games or vending machines, resulting in a bizarre hybrid where traces of the original token design remain visible beneath or alongside the quarter's impression. One such error coin, graded MS-65 and authenticated by a third-party grading service, sold in 2014 for nearly $16,000, a striking illustration of how unusual mint accidents can command high prices if genuinely verified. Off-center strikes are another error class that collectors examine closely. These occur when the planchet, the blank metal disc that becomes a coin, is not properly centered in the coin press when it is struck. The result shows the design shifted off the normal position, with parts of the coin's image missing or cut off at the edge. The value of these coins varies with how far off-center the design is and whether the date and mint mark remain visible. For example, a 1983 quarter with only a slight off-center strike might be worth perhaps a few $dozen to an error collector, while more dramatic examples where a significant part of the image is missing can fetch well into triple digits when authenticated and graded. Another error collectors look for is known as the finned rim. This happens when extra metal flows around the rim of the coin due to incomplete seating or collar issues during striking, forming a thin flange or extra ridge along the edge. These finned rims are not common and create interesting visual differences from standard coins. While values vary depending on condition and how pronounced the finning is, such coins often attract premiums compared with normal strikes because they show a genuine metal flow anomaly and are distinctly identifiable to specialists. One more category reported for this year is the reverse indent error, which occurs when one planchet is struck on top of another inadvertently, causing an impression that shows reversed or doubled design elements. Combined error types such as a finned rim coupled with a reverse indent can be especially desirable because they show multiple minting anomalies on a single piece, making the coin rarer and telling a more complex history about its creation. Beyond these errors, collectors sometimes encounter more unusual and dramatic reports involving coins struck on the wrong planchets. In rare instances, a quarter design may be struck on a planchet intended for another denomination, for example, a 5-cent nickel planchet resulting in a quarter design on an undersized and lighter blank. These so-called wrong planchet errors are rare because they require a blank intended for a different denomination to slip through sorting mechanisms and be fed into the quarter press. But when authenticated, examples of wrong planchet Washington quarters from 1983 have sold for several $100s at auction because they are visually striking and clearly distinct from standard coins. While error coins capture much of the collector fascination, another aspect of the 1983 P quarter market is the impact of mint mark and die variations. For U.S. coins of this era, mint marks were applied manually or semi-manually to working dies before striking began. This means that differences in mint mark positioning, relief, and even small repunching variations where the mint mark was struck more than once in slightly different positions on the die can create minor varieties that interest die variety collectors. However, many of these minor mint mark differences, such as a slightly weak or recessed P, are considered either common die wear or collector curiosities with minimal added value, especially in circulated grades where wear obscures details. When it comes to proven market values, the divergence between face value and collector value becomes clear. An everyday circulated 1983 quarter without notable errors is typically worth its face value of 25 cents or modestly more among collectors seeking common dates. In very nice circulated condition, collectors might pay up to $1 or $2, but this represents the low end of the market. Better uncirculated examples with no errors, especially those graded MS65 or higher by reputable grading services, can be worth anywhere from $20 to $60 or more, depending on grade, eye appeal, and market demand. Some top-grade specimens graded MS67 fetch prices in the low thousands, because truly pristine examples, especially from a year with relatively fewer mint sets distributed to collectors, are less common and therefore more sought after for registry sets and high-grade collections. Error coins add another dimension to these values. A dramatic off-center strike authenticated and graded could easily be worth several $100s depending on severity and whether key date and design details are visible. A well-documented double strike error, where overlapping designs are clearly seen, has been known to sell for around $630 or more in uncirculated condition. Rare wrong planchet strikes and especially unique struck-on token errors have in some cases commanded five-figure prices, as in the amusement token overstrike sales. Collectors looking at these values need to keep several key principles in mind. First, grade matters. The condition of a coin has one of the largest influences on its collector value. A high-grade uncirculated coin with sharp details and original luster will attract far more interest and higher prices than the same coin worn smooth by circulation. Second, error identification and authentication are critical. Many coins that appear to have anomalies are simply wear or damage, and only true minting errors authenticated by grading services like PCGS or NGC command significant premiums. Third, provenance and documentation help establish legitimacy and support higher prices, especially for rare error types or unique varieties. For everyday coin enthusiasts or beginning collectors, the history of the 1983 Washington quarter is a reminder that even common-looking coins can harbor surprises. A cursory glance can make any quarter seem forgettable, but with careful observation and knowledge of what to look for: clear mint marks, off-center designs, broad strike anomalies, die cracks like the Spitting Eagle, wrong planchet strikes, or overstrikes on foreign blanks, you may find that change in your pocket is worth a closer look. Each of these anomalies has its own collector audience, demand curve, and price range, and even modest errors can be worth significantly more than face value when authenticated and graded. It is worth emphasizing that not every oddity on a coin adds value. Many coins show wear, scratches, or post-mint damage that are not related to mint errors. Filled in dies, weakly struck details due to worn dies, or damage from circulation should not be confused with true mint errors. Experienced collectors recommend using magnification, comparing with known reference examples, and seeking professional grading before assuming a coin has significant additional value. Ultimately, the Liberty Quarter $1983 USA coin illustrates how a seemingly humble piece of everyday currency can have a market value far different from its face value when the forces of history, minting processes, human error, collector demand, and rarity intersect. Whether you are casually sorting through old pocket change or meticulously building a high-grade registry set, understanding these dynamics can make the difference between seeing a quarter as just 25 cents and recognizing it as a potential $1,000 collectible. And that is the magic of numismatics. Beneath the familiar surface of everyday coins lie histories, surprises, and values that reflect not just economics but human curiosity and passion for preserving tangible fragments of history. My dear coin collectors, if you're sorting through your loose change, a handful of quarters, nickels, dimes, and a single 1993 Washington quarter catches your eye. Most people see it as worth 25 cents, but what if that small piece of metal is actually more valuable than you ever imagined? What if a tiny minting mistake, an uncommon strike, or a brilliant uncirculated specimen could make this seemingly ordinary quarter worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars? That's exactly the kind of story that grips coin collectors and treasure hunters alike. The story of how a humble quarter from Philadelphia in 1993 can be worth far more than its face value because of condition, mint marks, mistakes, and rare errors, you might have no idea that Washington quarters, especially those minted in Philadelphia with the P mint mark in 1993, have become a subject of intense interest in numismatics because of the different ways they can be valued. To the everyday person, a quarter is just that, a quarter. But to collectors, a 1993 P quarter can be a window into mint history, machine imperfections, die varieties, and the unpredictable world of market demand. In this long narrative we'll trace the history of that coin in circulation, how it was made, the varieties collectors look for, the errors that can make it valuable, and the market values that reflect its journey from pocket change to prized collectible. The Washington quarter design, featuring the profile of the first U.S. President, George Washington, was introduced in 1932 to mark his 200th birthday. Designed by John Flanagan, it quickly became a beloved and standard feature of American coinage. By 1968 the mint mark that identifies where a coin was struck had been moved to the obverse front behind Washington's ponytail, and by 1976 the Philadelphia facility was striking Washington quarters with a P mint mark, the same mark that appears on the coins from 1993. The 1993 P quarter continued this tradition, with the familiar design that had become second nature in everyday commerce. In 1993, the Philadelphia Mint produced approximately 639,276,000 of these quarters. From a purely production standpoint, this high number means that the coin is very common, so common, in fact, that the vast majority of these coins remain worth only their face value of 25 cents even decades after they were struck. Most of these coins have spent years in circulation, passing through hands, pockets, vending machines, and cash registers, and show the kind of wear and tear that makes them unremarkable to collectors. But the story doesn't stop there. For many coins, the key to unlocking value beyond face lies first in condition, and collectors use an established grading scale to determine how worn or uncirculated a coin is. Coins that are heavily worn and have lost most of their detail through circulation may still be worth just 25 cents to change hunters. But as the condition improves with sharper details and less where the collectible value rises. An uncirculated 1993 P quarter in average pristine condition might sell for several dollars, and some examples that have been certified in exceptionally high grades such as MS66 or above by Professional Coin Grading Service PCGS or Numismatic Guarantee Company NGC have been known to fetch hundreds of dollars. The reason for that shift is simple: while millions were struck, very few have survived decades of circulation with perfect or near-perfect surfaces. Most coins get worn, scratched, or otherwise damaged over time, and true gem-quality examples are scarce. This is why a certified MS67 1993 P quarter one with strong strike details and brilliant uncirculated surfaces can bring significantly more than face value when sold in the collector market. But condition is just the beginning. Mint errors, mistakes that occur during the coin manufacturing process, are where value can increase dramatically and unexpectedly. Because the United States Mint produces billions of coins using automated presses, occasional mistakes inevitably occur. Some of these mistakes are subtle and hardly change the look of the coin, while others are dramatic enough to attract collector interest and higher prices. One common type of mint error for the 1993 P quarter is the off-center strike. This occurs when the metal blank planchet is not properly positioned between the dies when the press strikes it. As a result, part of the design is missing or cut off, and a blank crescent of metal appears on one side. How far off-center the strike is makes a big difference in value. Minor off-center strikes might add a modest premium over face value, but dramatic off-center coins where perhaps 50% or more of the design is missing can attract collector prices that are many times greater than face value, sometimes up to $100 or more depending on condition and degree of misalignment. Another prominent error type that collectors seek in the 1993 Washington quarter series is the double strike. This occurs when a coin is struck more than once by the dies during production. In a double-struck coin, the design appears overlapped or offset because the metal blank was struck properly, then shifted slightly before a second strike. These are among the most valuable 1993 quarter errors, with authenticated examples graded in MS64 condition bringing between about $500 and $600 at auction. A 1993 P double strike error with the second strike significantly off-center has been documented selling for about $500 to $600 in verified auction records. Even rarer than double strikes are triple strike errors, which as the name suggests occur when a coin is struck a third time due to a misfeed or other mechanical anomaly. These coins are especially dramatic in appearance and collectors prize them because the overlapping impressions create a striking visual effect. Verified triple strike 1993 P quarters graded in high condition have been known to sell for around $700 or more at auction, making them among the most valuable error types in the series. Another error type collectors look for is a missing clad layer. Post-1964 quarters are made of a copper core sandwiched between outer layers of cupro nickel. Occasionally, a planchet is improperly prepared and one or both outer layers fail to bond, exposing the copper core or leaving only a thin layer of metal. These missing clad errors can be dramatic because the color appears wrong copper instead of normal quarter coloration, and they often occur on only one side. Examples of 1993 quarters with missing clad layers have been documented selling in the low hundreds of dollars range when authenticated and graded. Collectors also occasionally encounter rotated die errors. These happen when one side of the coin is not aligned properly relative to the other when struck, so that if you flip the coin over it appears rotated at an angle compared with where it should be. Minor rotations of only a few degrees have modest value, but more dramatic rotations approaching 90 or even 180 degrees are far rarer and can command values in the tens or low hundreds of dollars depending on condition and degree of rotation. There are other less common minting anomalies that sometimes appear and attract collector interest, such as die crack, small raised lines on the surface where the die has fractured, or rare mismatches like clipped planchets where the blank was improperly cut. These typically carry smaller premiums than the dramatic strike errors, but in the right condition and with clear visual appeal they can still be worth more than face value. It's important for collectors, especially ones new to coin collecting, to be able to distinguish real mint errors from post-mint damage (PMD). Many irregularities on coins are caused after the coin leaves the mint, such as being damaged in a dryer, scratched by keys or coins in a pocket, bent, or worn unevenly by circulation. These do not add value and in fact can reduce value. By contrast, mint errors are anomalies that occurred during production, and authentic examples are typically authenticated and graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC, which helps establish market legitimacy and value. Another factor that affects the value of a 1993 P quarter is mint mark quality and die variation, though for this date there are no widely recognized major double die varieties on the business strikes that have received official designation from grading services. This means that for ordinary non-proof 1993 quarters, value beyond face is driven mainly by condition and major mint errors rather than catalog die varieties on normal strikes. When evaluating how much a 1993 P quarter is worth, collectors also consider auction records and documented sales history. While circulated examples with ordinary wear are typically only worth face value, and lightly worn examples might fetch $1 or $2, uncirculated and certified pieces in MS64 or MS65 condition are regularly traded for $20 to $60 or more depending on eye appeal. Exceptional certified examples graded MS67 or higher can sell for several $100s, making them significantly more valuable than their original 25-cent denomination. In the specific niche of error coins, values vary widely with the type and severity of the error. A dramatic triple strike error graded MS66 can sell for around $700 to $800 or more. A double strike in similar condition can sell for $500, $600. Off-center errors with significant misalignment may be worth $100, $150, and missing clad errors documented at auctions have traded for approximately $150, $175. Less dramatic errors such as slight rotated dies or minor die cracks have more modest premiums but still typically command prices above face value. Throughout its life, the 1993 P Washington quarter has circulated widely and remained a staple of everyday transactions, which means that most examples are familiar and common. But among these common pieces hides a smaller world of rare, unusual, and collectible specimens that tell histories about the minting process, mechanical anomalies, and the passage of time as coins survive in the hands of millions of Americans. What was once pocket change has become a way for collectors to connect with history, production techniques, and the thrill of discovery. The divergence between a coin's face value and its collector market value highlights a broader truth about coin collecting. The value of a coin to collectors isn't simply what is stamped on its surface, but what it represents: rarity, condition, era, history, and desirability. A coin that might once have bought a pack of gum can, in the right condition and with the right features, sell for hundreds of dollars decades later. And while most 1993 P quarters you encounter will remain worth just 25 cents, the possibility that you could find one of the rare gems, a high-grade uncirculated coin or a major error, is part of what keeps coin collectors motivated to look closely at every piece of change they find in their pocket or in a dollar bin.